How's everybody doing tonight? Everybody in a great mood? I'm so used to saying welcome to AU, I don't think I can get away with that today. So welcome to the Revit User Group for Raleigh here. Everybody say hi. My name is David Butts. I'm the Engineering Technology Manager for Gannett Fleming. Been here about 9 years. For 13 years before that, I was with an Autodesk reseller. And I'm part of the Autodesk Expert Elite program. So just a little history here. Gannett Fleming is a 102-year-old company. We were started by one of the founding members of the National Geographic Society. And his Farley Gannett, who started the company, his father is actually, Gannett Peak in Wyoming, which is the second tallest peak in North America, was named after him. So he's the father of the cartographic map. So we do a little bit of everything here: civil, environmental, electrical, construction management, facilities, name all of it. So we're really glad everybody can make it down here today and kind of join us. I want to introduce Mike Daugherty over here. He's my favorite Yankee. We've hijacked him from Long Island to come down here and do water and wastewater design for us. And he's going to be doing our presentation tonight from the water business line about doing a water treatment plant in BIM 360. You're going to get to see an example of a project that we did down in Clayton. So got some cool stuff going on there for you. Here's our agenda for tonight. For the safety note, if anybody needs it. I don't really know how to tell you this, but if you got to get out of here, there's stairs on both ends of the building, so follow the dash lines and go out. I'm sorry. But we also don't have any life vests that drop from the ceiling, so I guess we're all right. Oxygen mask, none of that. So, even though it is a nice new building. So here's what we're doing tonight. We're going to start off with a little bit of introductions here. I'm going to get everybody else to introduce themselves here in a second. We're going to start with Mike here in just a couple of minutes, talking about the Novo Nordisk water treatment plant. And then at 6:30, we're going to have my buddies from J. Davis Design, Sean Clemens and Ben Scott. You guys are going to jump up here and talk about actually working on this building, which, like I said, we just moved into a few months ago here. Really nice little office space. And after we get done, we're going to have some open discussion. So if anybody has any questions, just pop up anytime and just ask us, and we'll be more than happy to get started. All right. So I'm going to kick it right off real quick here tonight. I'm going to get started with Mike, and I'm going to let Mike introduce himself here a little bit, and then I'm going to be his driver today. So knock it off.
How you doing, everybody? Thanks for coming down. As David said,
You got to put on a mic, man. Here, clip that to your shirt. This is called microphoning 101. Can you handle that? Okay, now put that on your pocket and don't trip over the cord.
Make sure it's turned on.
Yeah, make sure it's turned on. You hit the button on the left here. There you go. Whoops.
see that?
Start over again. This is what happens when you put engineers in charge.
Jesus.
That's what happens when you put engineers and tech guys in charge. So.
Okay, better? All right. Okay, so like David said, I'm originally from New York. Come down from Long Island about 2 years ago. I've been in the Raleigh area. We love it down here. I am a BIM specialist and a designer for the water business line at Gannett Fleming. Been with Gannett Fleming 21 years. I've been in the wastewater field for about 30. Like I said, like David said, the project that we're going to talk about tonight is a treatment plant that we did for Novo Nordisk over in Clayton. This was a wastewater pretreatment facility. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with wastewater at all, but a wastewater pretreatment facility basically treats typically industrial wastewater from a plant that has a process that maybe is out of spec for discharge into a publicly owned treatment plant. So the wastewater gets pre-treated and then discharged to the publicly owned treatment plant after it's cleaned up a little bit. The project we did down here in Clayton was an EPC project. I don't know if you're all aware of or familiar with the term, but it's an engineering, procurement, and construction project. So Gannett Fleming did the engineering, we did the procurement, and we did the construction management on the project. The facility was done for Novo Nordisk to support a new campus that they were building out there to manufacture a new drug that they were doing down here in the Triangle that was previously manufactured in Europe, and they were bringing it over here to the United States and going to do production here. The stakeholders on the project were Novo Nordisk and the town of Clayton. Novo Nordisk was paying for the plant, owned the plant, but they didn't have any experience with running a wastewater treatment plant. So the town of Clayton was going to take over operations of this plant when construction's complete. So we had kind of to answer to two folks there. We had to answer to the town of Clayton and Novo Nordisk. So the town of Clayton may have had things on their wish list that maybe Novo Nordisk didn't want to necessarily pay for. So we kind of had to walk that edge between the two of them. We were required to provide construction documents, plans and specifications, like I said, procurement of all the equipment, and construction management. The challenges that we faced on this project were, first was the site constraints. We were bordered on two sides, on one side by a railroad, the other side by a wetlands. We had setbacks we had to deal with, and we had to try and shoehorn this treatment plant into this very confined space. The second challenge we had with the design team was I had designers on this team all over the country. I had folks in Arizona, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and down here in Raleigh. We had to be able to get everybody to communicate. We needed to be able to share information real time. We needed to be able to share files real time. And the last challenge we had on the project was the schedule. We had a kickoff meeting January 4th, 2018 for this project. We had an early structural design issued for construction March 28th. That gave us 3 months to pretty much know what all our structural foundations were going to be. We had final construction documents issued for permit on June 14th, and we issued the contract documents for construction on July 19th. So basically, this project went from 0 to issued for construction in 6 months. And I don't know if anybody's done wastewater before, but that is a super aggressive schedule for a wastewater treatment plant, to go from 0 to construction in 6 months. Where I come from up in New York, something like that will take 2 years. It's just unheard of. So what we had to do was we had to sit there and figure out, all right, what technology is available to us that we can get everybody on the same page, get everybody collaborating, and get this thing done in the time frame that we had. So we came up and we looked at what we had and we made some decisions. The civil work was going to be designed in AutoCAD Civil 3D. I had a really good Civil 3D designer out in Pittsburgh, and he was going to take the lead on that aspect of it, working with an engineer out of the Raleigh, North Carolina office. So they had to collaborate. All the other disciplines were going to be done in AutoCAD Revit 2018. The only thing we really used AutoCAD for were details, standard detail type stuff, wiring diagrams, and instrumentation. Everything else was 100% done in Revit. So now we need to collaborate. How are we going to get all this stuff, if you will, kind of contained in one area where everybody's got access to it? So we figured, all right, we've got BIM 360 in-house. Let's try it, see if we can make it work for us. The things BIM 360 did for us was it allowed us a central storage area for all of our Revit files, models, if you will. It gave us a centralized storage area for all our LinkedIn tables, maybe Excel spreadsheets, standard detail type stuff. Everything could be coordinated there. Everybody's got access to it. We're not relying on our corporate WAN, which, depending on where you are in this firm, could be fine or it could be painfully slow. A lot of our smaller offices, satellite offices, if you will, do not have, super fast internet access. Trying to cram a Revit model of this size on a small pipe, it just drives you nuts. I've done it a couple of times on some jobs years ago. It was not fun. It gave us the ability to access models when we weren't on the corporate LAN. During the course of this project, we had to have meetings, progress meetings, if you will, with the stakeholders. They wanted the meetings at their site. So now I needed a way to be able to bring my models up on site, have everybody review it, be able to, spin these things around and give them any kind of 3D view they wanted to see at these meetings. And by utilizing the BIM 360 with the internet connection that they had there, it was seamless. It was like I was working at my desk in my home office. The other thing that BIM 360 allowed us to do was manage user rights. We've got people that are reviewing drawings, models, whatever, that are not necessarily Revit savvy. But they want to be able to go in, they want to be able to look around, they want to be able to see things. We can assign rights through the BIM 360 software so that they can't hurt us, okay? They can go in, they can look around, but they can't change anything. They don't have right access. It allowed us to have some control over which disciplines could get into which models. Did I necessarily want an electrical guy messing around with a structural model? No, it could be catastrophic if he does something that, just, screws up the structural model, and then I get them on the phone screaming at me, what happened to my model, and believe me, it happens. I mean, people go in, they start messing around, and my phone rings, and it's like, oh, it doesn't work, it's corrupt, it's this. So I like to have that level of control. It also allows us to create folders, so we can more or less set up our structure any way we want, and now they've got to live by how we want it set up, okay? We want it so that everybody can find what they're looking for. Everyone's got a place to put their stuff, each discipline, and keep all your stuff there, organized, drawing files, Excel files, in folders. And it worked out, really well. Then we've got the whole communication issue. We've got different time zones here. How are we going to collaborate? I have an issue. How do I explain to you what my issue is, where we have the conflict, what the conflict is, how can we resolve it? So we utilize Skype for Business or Microsoft Teams. They worked real well. We were able to share screens. We were able to, kind of work things out on the fly. It's inherent in any design. You get disciplines, running stuff, and you're always fighting for space. And it was a way to, in real time, just sit down, go through the model and where our issues were that we had identified, where we had hits, and kind of work through them. All right, yeah, I can move, this pipe, 6 feet that way to clear your duct. It worked out real well. A lot of times a picture is worth 1,000 words when you're doing this kind of stuff. They can actually see what you're talking about. A lot of times you deal with engineering staff that maybe can't visualize three-dimensionally when you're talking to them. When you're trying to explain something, they're just not getting it. But when you can share your screen, show a model, kind of spin it around and, whatever, they get it then. So it really worked out well. Like I said, the entire design was completed in 6 months. It would not have been possible without the talented team that we had on it. We had, some of our best guys, I would say, in the firm, working on this project, at least from the modeling side. And then, access to the right tools made all the difference. The job is scheduled to go live next month. Should be substantially complete. So we went January 2018. This is now August 2019, and we're ready to go live with this thing. Would not have been possible without the Revit technology that we had on this project. And that's pretty much it. These are just some screenshots of the Revit model that we just kind of pulled out there just to give you an idea of what the level of effort was. Some of the stuff was custom families. Some of the stuff we got from the manufacturers. Some of the stuff is Revit right out of the box. So, it worked out well. It's been successful so far. We'll find out how it does next month when they throw the switch. Fingers crossed it works fine. Yes?
Did you have anything special for integrating like budget and scheduling and like permit reviews and things?
We had a whole different team of people that were handling all that. We had several different discipline leads on the project who were responsible for discipline-specific budget, and then we had one guy that was kind of overseeing everything. And he was more or less interfacing with the regulatory agencies, the building departments, the town of Clayton, Novo Nordisk. He was kind of the point guy. And then we would have weekly progress meetings, and we would just discuss issues and resolve them that way.
Did you use 360 as a repository for all that stuff?
We did not. We, on the design side, are way further along with this BIM 360 stuff than some of the management folks are. It's just that, at least in our company.
Because I was really wondering like how Town of Clayton really responded to being able to fly around a model.
Well, it's like any other vendor. I mean, when you think about it, this technology is really not that old. And when you start going into client sites and start to show them something like what you're seeing here in the model, this is like a gee whiz toy to a lot of these guys. Now, when we start talking about the water industry, and this is not meant to hurt anybody's feelings, but they're not exactly up with the times with a lot of other buildings we do, like this building right here. I mean, the kind of work and design work that goes into this structure is nothing like what we do with water and wastewater type treatment plants. The difference there is that the process is driving what the facility is instead of the building housing what's going on. So the building's really ancillary to what we do. It's just there to hold what the system is.
It's more or less like an envelope.
Right.
You're taking your process, and the building is just an envelope to keep it dry.
Right, and the cool part about this is that we had, Mike working on this project in Long Island and down here when he moved down here. And then we had a guy named Ron Onderco up in Pittsburgh who's one of our other BIM specialists for the water business line. These guys basically knocked this model out in a month. That's how quickly they were to get through it. And we went through 3 design changes.
Yeah.
Where we had a setback issue.
We had setback issue number 1, then we had
number 2, and we had
see, the other
wetlands.
thing that I really didn't mention here was because Gannett was doing the procurement on this, we might have gone down a road designing around a certain manufacturer. And then they go and try and buy it and find out, well, I can get a better price from Z manufacturer instead of A manufacturer. Change the design, we're going to go with Z manufacturer. So the digester tanks, I did twice. Had them totally designed, throw them out, we're going with a different manufacturer, do them again.
He was smart enough to back the project up
Yeah.
before he did this, which is great.
Yeah, and we had that several times. Blowers changed out. Centrifuge changed out. The final design is still different from this model you're seeing here because there was stuff that was purchased out in the field that never even made it into the model because we pretty much stopped with this once we issued for construction. But they were still buying equipment and changing equipment. So there were times where we would come in and they would say spec or purchase a different centrifuge than what we had in there. Is it going to fit? I don't know. Let me throw it in there and see if it fits. And, we kind of went like that. So this is not 100% of what it's going to look like when it's done.
That's not, you're not doing the as-built.
We're not doing as-built.
No, they'll be handed off to the contractor.
They are not using the model in the field. And, you know,
Yeah,
I offered that
unfortunately,
up
not
to
at this
them.
point.
And
Unless we find out who the contractor is, and then we might try to cut them a deal, but the reality is we want to do that. It just depends on what the client asks for and what they want to use in the field. Yeah, and in this particular case, we don't have a problem sharing our models at all. You know, we have the same type of legal use agreement that we had with the CAD files back when we were giving everybody CAD files all the time. You know, we've got tools that strip these things down and remove a lot of detail. You know, things like seals and that. We have automated tools that take all that stuff out. So we have a construction document prep system that helps us prep that up for models. Depending on the contractor that's coming in, some of them want the model, some of them don't. In this particular case, they didn't. Again, we're looking at the town, we're looking at their history. Are they used to doing this kind of design? So we were just trying to give them a taste of what they could be doing.
And I've given
That's all that
models
is,
to
yeah.
several contractors up in New York. I've probably given models to probably 3 or 4 different contractors on 3 or 4 different wastewater jobs up in New York. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
the contractors up in New York want the model. They ask for it.
Right.
They normally will import it into Navisworks or something like that, but they want the 3D. The owner could care less. The owner's, you know, yeah, just give me a set of plans, and you know, they throw them in a back room someplace, and that's the end of it. But
So the maintenance guy comes up and they know what.
Yeah.
exactly.
We had a
But-
maintenance guy working for us before, and he was always yelling at us about our designs. Make it so I can work on it. And he left us, and I miss him already. So the fun part is, and I wanted to point something else out here too. We use Inventor heavily in our firm. As we've developed these relationships with our vendors and with our clients, if we know that somebody has a good relationship with a client, in this particular case, it was Evoqua. If we know that they have that kind of a relationship, then we'll go to the vendor and say, hey, give us a 3D model, and we'll get maybe a SolidWorks assembly or an Inventor assembly or something like that. But then we use BIM Exchange to remove detail, cut it down, and really give us the model that we need for the vendor. So we're combining LOD 300 and 400 at the same time. This becomes more important when you do EPC projects, because if you're doing procurement, you actually are going to go with that vendor. So by having that relationship, it's not just about the tool itself, it's understanding the relationship between you, the vendor, and the owner, and how do I change that information stream to give me something like this particular clarifier unit here. That's what made the big difference for us. And, you know, Mike can take these models from these guys, have them down in a couple hours and have them knocked over and have them in Revit, have his connection points in them, have all of our standard parameters in them that we need for our schedules, for data, for whatever we need. All that stuff is already in there.
And what tool are you using for that?
What are we using for that?
Yeah, to get it solved.
Well, we'll clean it up. We'll clean it up with Inventor.
We use Inventor.
Yeah.
Yeah, Inventor has, if you guys haven't seen it, if you're not using Inventor to work with Revit and you do process design, start using Inventor to work with Revit.
But we're taking stuff from SolidWorks, trying to
Yeah.
get it to, so you can
Yeah.
bring it to a Inventor and then bring it.
I'm gonna get on to SolidWorks. It's a great program. It doesn't hold a candle to the communication between Inventor and Revit. And since Inventor can talk to anything, I use it on a regular basis. I can pull files in from almost anywhere. I know that it's easy enough for me to use because I'm an idiot in most of this stuff when it comes to things like Inventor. If I can figure it out, anybody can figure it out.
Anybody
And
here
so
work for a
it's really
manufacturer?
simple.
I guess what I'm asking in general is like, all the stuff you get from manufacturers, like how are you, what are your workflows for getting it into Revit?
So we convert the model into either
Well,
an IPT or
back up a minute,
Yeah.
back up a minute, because what we normally do, or what I normally do,
Yeah.
is I kind of, anybody here a manufacturer, work for a manufacturer? Okay, I kind of really, I kind of
over here
hijack
real
it,
quick.
all right, I'll tell, the sales rep that if you want to be first name in our spec, I need a Revit model. I need Revit content. And if you can't give me Revit content, you give me Inventor. And I got a whole list of things, step file, in order, descending order of how useful it is to me. And you'd be surprised how fast, because they all have 3D content. They'll tell you they don't, but they do. And the minute you say, we're not going to name you in the spec, all of a sudden, oh yeah, we got this for you, Oh yeah, it's amazing, huh? Because first names you're designing around them, all right? So the contractor's going to look at this when you turn over the 3D model, and they're going to look at a piece of equipment that, is X size, and it fits in the space nice, and it's all piped up, and they're not going to go, it's not going to be their first choice to go and find a different manufacturer when now they're on the hook for doing all the engineering on it, okay?
Yep.
Let's relay out the piping and everything else. So they'll, a lot of the time, go with first name manufacturer. And the sales reps know that. So we strong arm them. You want, bottom line, you want to be first named, I need content. And they come through with it. 9 times out of 10, they come through with it. And if they don't have it, they'll get somebody up there on their end to generate it.
That's why I like bringing my Yankee down here, man. He brings that mafia technique. I love it. It's awesome. So real quick to answer your question, we pull it into Inventor, we convert it to a family or to assembly or a part. I go through and I do, I'll look for small parts like nuts and bolts in the model browser, and I just get rid of them. I delete them. I don't care about the guts of the model. I'm looking for that shrink wrap shell where the connection points are. So I'll clean it up and I'll run it through shrink wrap, substitute, and lower the detail level in it. Export it out to ADSK. That's critical. Don't do it straight to RFA. Go out to ADSK. And when we get it out there, then I just open it up in Revit. I have my connectors. We have our own utilities that load up parameters that we need for schedules and analysis in electrical loads. It does it automatically. We just push a button, boom, everything's in there. We associate it, and we're done. So that process, we've gotten with the BIM specialist teams in our company, they've gotten that process hands down. And so when content comes in, like Mike is the lead BIM specialist for the water business line in here, something comes in, it's either going to go to him or on, and they'll have it knocked out really quickly on a project. So we had to change our work breakdown structure with our project managers to make sure they included time for that task and make sure that they could account for it. And it just works. I mean, because it's another Autodesk product, it just makes it easier for us to deal with. I'm not having to go to another vendor and say, well, it's a compatibility problem between these two vendors. If there's a problem, I'm calling this guy, right, and saying, hey, this stuff's not working.
So when you come from Inventor, you said you export it as an ADSK?
ADSK.
Yeah, we do an export as ADSK.
Mm-hmm.
And then, which software absorbs that?
Revit does. Revit,
Yeah,
AutoCAD.
you can bring it right into Revit.
If you want to go really,
ADSK?
yeah, ADSK, a little bit of history for people that may not know this. What was it, the AirMax initiative? It came out 10, 15 years ago. It was the AutoCAD, that shows you how long I've been dealing with these guys, right? It was the AutoCAD, Inventor, Revit, 3D Studio Max compatibility file format. That's what ADSK is. Any one of those applications can open that file. So Revit opens it as a family. It's automatically, you don't have to convert it, you don't have to save as, you don't have to do anything. You just open it.
And then recognize it.
Yeah, then it just comes in as a composite solid inside the family. Very small, very fast.
Static, you can't really do anything.
No, you
Yeah,
can't.
no, you're not going to do it there because if I'm going to change it, I'm going to go back in Inventor.
Go to Inventor and change it. Once you bring it into Revit, it's pretty much, it's
The
just,
connections are super important, so you can add connections in there, right? The Revit connections?
well, once you bring
Yeah.
it into Revit, now you could just use Revit to add the connectors. You add your electrical connectors, your pipe connectors.
Put it in family
Modify
and
the
add
geometry,
those.
but
Yeah, well,
Right, yeah, you can't modify the geometry, but you can add a connector. So you just come in, you add a pipe connector, you just, put pipe connector on face, boom, and it's
it
it.
gets back to ownership. I mean, we have some vendors we work with that will get 7, 8, 10, 13 iterations of that model from, especially water's weird because this isn't plumbing fixtures, guys. You've got everything changes on every project. It's hard to have a consistent library to do this. And so
Yeah,
some of our vendors are
equipment,
really
yeah,
good.
equipment is different on every project.
Yeah.
It's not like an electrical outlet or something like that where, they're the same every project. I mean, pumps are different on every project.
Right.
Process equipment is different on every project. So I've got a directory full of junk on my local drive that I'll probably never use
He does.
again.
He's
But
got a folder
I'm a
called junk.
pack rat. I save every stinking family that I create for any project because I may need it again. Probably not, but I may, So, it's just the nature of the beast, and that's what makes these jobs challenging also, because now it's every project you work on, you got to fight with a vendor or a manufacturer to try and get 3D content.
Yeah, and
Can you say the list of the softwares again?
so we use Inventor at the front end to do equipment conversions. We use Revit primarily for all of our plan modeling. And we still use a little bit of AutoCAD, but we're actually getting ready to move away from AutoCAD and do all of our instrumentation, diagrams, and details in Revit now as native content. We've developed some internal content and applications to help us do instrumentation and controls now.
That's different than the P&ID.
Yeah, I was part of the original development team for Plant 3D, and when that came on, and that was a great application. When it came in, we kept asking them, why aren't you doing this in Revit? Anybody remember that conversation when it came out? P&ID is already here. We're on version 5 already. Okay, why aren't you doing this in Revit? It was just a different development line, different engine, different management staff. And I think Autodesk, as you look at them as a whole and we start going to the Forge platform, I think you're going to see more of this integration of hooked-in tools, whether they're based in Revit or based in AutoCAD, that are pulling from that common Forge database. That's why we tried to stream these guys up, and that's why we got them on Teams, because now that they have the Office 365 compatibility, you've got that ability to link more things into the model than we could in the past. So now that we've got 365 with BIM 360, that really helps. So we started training them to go down that path. That was critical to pick that out. We are right at 6:30, so we're at the terminal of our time here. And does anybody have any more quick questions while we're switching over here?
Are you getting vendor content in Inventor, or?
Sometimes we do.
Sometimes we do, sometimes,
Stuff in Inventor, or you're getting it?
sometimes we'll get it as an RFA file if we're really, really lucky.
Really
That
lucky.
doesn't happen too often. A lot of times we'll get step, which is just fine. Step into Inventor, not a problem. Clean it up a little bit, take all the nuts, bolts, washers, all the junk that, at the scale that we're working at here is just, making this thing slow down for no reason whatsoever. So clean all that junk out of it. A lot of time they'll send us content that has all the internals. I don't care. I just need the pump shell. I don't need the motor windings or the impellers or all that. So you clean all that junk out. And Inventor does a good job at doing that, You're trying to get that family as small as you can. The more detail you have on these families times an entire treatment plant equals a real slow Revit model. So.
Do you have to do much graphically, like for your plans to read, and like with those files that you're making?
No, because we define them, as a mechanical equipment, and we have our templates set up that mechanical equipment's a certain line weight, and it just drops right in. It looks fine. I mean, sometimes they come in way too detailed, but I've been doing it for a while now, so I kind of know when I look at a step file what I need to take out, what is just kind of junk, that's just going to clog things up, and I just eliminate it. Nuts, bolts, washers are like the big thing I try and get rid of, and then check and see if there's any internals in there. You can save a lot of space, especially on things like screw conveyors and stuff, where you get the auger in there and it's 20 feet long, and you got all that mesh and everything else. You take the augers out, and wow, this file just got real small. So yeah.
All right. Anybody else got anything for Mike? You good with him?
Thank you all.
All right. How about now? Can you hear me now? Okay. Before we switch over, this is the Revit user group plug. I want to make sure everybody knows that this isn't a Gannett Fleming thing. This is the Revit user group for Raleigh here. I was involved in founding this program, God, how many years ago? Probably 15, 16 years ago when Revit first came out. It's amazing to me to see how much this group has evolved and changed over the years. And when I started getting active in it a couple years ago, the people that are running this group now that are involved in it, they're doing a fantastic job. And the idea is moving down the road, we want to be able to pull in more presentations and get more people to come in here to present. So if you have an idea, if you have a suggestion, something that you think is really cool, that you think everybody else can benefit from, you can talk to Eric Stewart, you can talk to Heather, you can talk to any of us, talk to Jason and Donnie and all these people. We can get you hooked up and get you to come up here and do a presentation, because this is the community that we're looking for. We want to be able to share some ideas, some good ways to do things. So it's really important that we promote this within our community here. And it's really nice to see this group grow and get bigger and see the crowd that we got tonight. It was really awesome. So thank Heather and all these guys for doing this stuff. They've done a great job maintaining this and moving it and getting it forward and making it to be the great group that it is now. So, all right. Yeah. Eric, too. All right, so next up, from J. Davis Architects. When I found out that they were doing the building, I was really excited and happy because, like I said, they were clients of mine for years, and I'm like, this is going to be great. So we have with us tonight Sean Clemens and Ben Scott, who are the senior project manager for designing One Glenwood here. In case you guys don't know, there's another building going up right next door that's going to be pretty similar to this one. Isn't that nice? Somebody else is doing that? Some has-been firm, I don't know. Somebody else, we don't know who it is. But to me, I love the building. I mean, the design is cool, and it's really cool to hear from the designers to see how they actually did this. How did they come up? What are some things that you learned about the building? What did you come across that was really helpful? So we're going to hand it off to these guys and let them do a presentation real quick about the building itself. And then we're going to take us about a second to get switched over to screens here. So if we can play to a commercial. No, we don't have a commercial. Everybody start singing Kumbaya. We'll be good here in just a second here. So let me swap us off on screens. Oh, and you need these.
Display adapter E1.
Let me get
I do a public service announcement.
Oh, wait, there it goes. It just
Signed
appeared.
in, please be sure you sign your name before you head out, so we know you're here.
disconnect. from
Whichever.
those so you can-
Yeah. I made some views. I made back to the cloud. I made some.
Cloud, you need to go back in the cloud?
Well, as soon as we get the display, there you go. 0. Okay.
So now we're going to connect you to this. And somebody takes a couple of shots to get this right. That's, I didn't even know this could until like 2 hours. We could go ahead and try it out. It works. So you hit it once, it says you can't connect, and you hit it again, and it usually does connect.
It blinked like it's connecting.
Let's try it. I'm going to get it one more time.
Connected, duplicate. All right.
Yeah, cool. There you go. Now go.
So then we can.
Welcome to today's technology.
Yeah. So I just made a couple of views in here under 3D.
It's just isolated.
Yeah, I pulled out electrical, mechanical, structural, and then this is just like the one that's under my name, which is 3D shown or whatever. And we need to isolate anything we could on that.
And remember, don't breathe into the mic.
All right.
All right, you're good. Donnie, you good? Check it out.
Move you out of the way here.
Alright, it's laggy.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh wow, it's updating the image like really slow.
It's probably a it's probably with the wireless screen duplication.
Yeah. It seems to be struggling pretty hard.
We'd always plug it in if we need to. There's a connection.
Straight HDMI plug it.
Thanks to you.
I do.
So if you spin it around, it's just like real juddery.
Well, this is a little slow, but that's to be expected because it's like a bunch of models poured on top of each other. It's just that screen can't keep up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's like
something
still
weird's going
trying
on.
to adjust.
I don't know. It's blue.
Says so. Says CHB12.
Yep, that looks good, and that looks good. Okay. The refresh on the screen's a little juddery. I don't know. Okay. Okay. Yeah, sort of like every once in a while, it sort of like pixelates a little bit. But, right. Give some time. Okay. Well, if y'all are good, we can go ahead and get started. So again, I'm Sean Clemens. I'm the architect with Jay Davis.
And I'm Ben Scott. I'm architect Jay Davis.
We had a disagreement earlier about who had the harder job on this project, but big picture, basically, Ben acted as project architect, and I was project manager on the day-to-day. So I don't know kind of what everybody else's backgrounds are here, but just to kind of give you guys a sense of how a project like this goes on. These buildings like this and several of the others that are under construction downtown right now, they're private development projects. And generally speaking, the way these things work, a lot of times we have developer clients and they come to us pretty much all the time and they're like, hey, we got this thing. Might want to put what can we put on this piece of property? What can we fit here? What can this be? And then depending on what the answer is, then it's like, okay, well, can you put something together for us? Because now we have to go off and sell it. So they've got to go find a bank that'll lend them money. They've got to go find tenants. So a lot of times we'll do kind of a preliminary schematic design phase or concept design phase, put together a package for them, and then they go off and come back sometimes a month, sometimes 6 months later, and okay, we're ready to go, or actually we're going to try something else or whatever. So anyway, big picture, this project kind of went through a little phase like that, and then the client, Heritage Properties, is a developer actually out of Baltimore. They've got a local guy here now named Ryan Blair, and Ryan is from this area. He'd worked up in Baltimore and decided he wanted to move back to Raleigh, so he came down here and started doing development projects for Heritage. Ryan came to us and said, okay, we're at that site on Glenwood Avenue. We're going to go ahead and build that thing. The project consisted of this building, the parking deck across the street, and then the hotel that fronts the parking deck. That was technically a separate project, but something sort of always envisioned from the beginning. They had to basically, the hotel's a separate client. So they went off and found a hotel partner that wanted to build a hotel and did that piece of it. So from the time they came to us and said, okay, we're ready to go, let's start design development, that was in the beginning of April 2016. And by about Thanksgiving, we were in for permit. So 7 months, and then I think construction started after the first year. The building, again, getting back to the development question, the important thing with those guys is, it's number one, speed to market, and what can we build by right? So, what can we fit on that footprint? Because if you could think about, if they want to go in and rezone something, it takes forever. Here in Raleigh, it's generally about a year, which is actually a lot faster than a lot of other places. But still, time kills deals, and if they've got to go and persuade the city council and the folks in the neighborhood about the project, and it just adds complication, adds time. So this building is pretty much the biggest thing can fit on this site. It is within a few inches of the maximum height. It is built up to the lot lines on pretty much all the sides. We had to get an encroachment from the city for the light fixtures, I think, over on Hillsborough Street. Because the light fixtures, the sconces on the building hung over the build-to line. And the windows. Yeah. The windows on the west side, the opposite side of the building, that window pattern is heavily dictated by how far away from the property line we are, because we can only have a certain percentage of allowable openings, and so we had to design the. Yeah. So it was like less than 20% here, 25% there, and yeah.
Yeah, we've also got the step backs from the UDO.
Oh, yeah. So then a few years ago, Raleigh moved to a form-based zoning code, which again specifies the heights and setbacks and all those kinds of things. And one of the things they added at that time were step backs, and so they say that between the third story and the eighth story, each street-facing elevation has to have a step back to get light and air and stuff down to the street. We were able to go in and get a variance for the side of the building facing Glenwood Avenue. So we don't have a step back there, but that was part of the reason why we have these step backs here on Hillsborough and then the one up on the 8th floor facing over there on Hargett. Or no, that's not Hargett. That's Morgan? Morgan. Yeah. So let's see. So Jay Davis was we were the architect, landscape architect, and interior designer. Crenshaw Consulting Engineers did plumbing, mechanical, electrical, and fire alarm. And Fleur Reed was the structural engineer. The whole project, I think we might start in Revit 14 or 15, but the project was done primarily in 16. It's actually still in 16 now because it never got upgraded. By the time it was under construction, I think we just carried on with it. But I think shell buildings are, there's not a lot to them necessarily in terms of you think like collision detection, that kind of stuff. When we design the building, we're designing the skin, we're designing the core. We designed, there's a sort of club lounge area up here on the 10th floor with the patio and everything. First floor lobby, all sort of core areas. But, we don't have a huge amount of clash detection to worry about. Where it did get complicated were, again, because of the height limitation, because of kind of trying to squish the whole building in, we got into issues here, like where the patios are, where this patio is up on 10, where the patio is back here on 8. But, we've got to drop the structure down to be able to allow for drainage and the patio pavers and everything else is out there on the deck. And then we've got to allow for the roof drains and everything coming out of the bottom and getting back to a column or something to run down the face of the run down through the building and down the stormwater. And so those actually got really tight. In terms of a shell building, that was one of the biggest issues we dealt with. We also have a transformer vault in the building. It's over there on the opposite corner from us. It's a 3-hour rated transformer enclosure. And we had a sand filter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, don't put sand filter in your building if you can help it.
Sand filter on the wastewater?
Stormwater.
Stormwater.
Yeah, so all the stormwater goes down into the loading dock, and 40% of it, I think, somewhere around there, had to go through the sand filter. And so because we built to the limits of the site, there was nowhere else to put it. And so yeah, it's in the loading dock. And it was from our perspective, it was a bit of a coordination issue because those things in our world, a lot of times they just end up out in the site somewhere. Yeah. And it's a precast box, and they just we don't have to do a whole lot with it. The GC buys it, they put it in a hole in the ground, and they cover it up, and nobody ever, somebody has to come do maintenance on it. But actually, this building and the parking deck both have sand filters in the building because we had nowhere else to put them. So it was a little bit of a different thing for us. But what else?
Yeah. The height limit also created some. Is the reason the second floor is only a half floor plate? Was because of the height limit?
Oh, it actually is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The second floor doesn't extend. If you go down and kind of walk around the front of the building here, the side facing Hillsborough Street, those retail spaces, your retail generally wants to be 16, 18-foot ceilings, something like that. They want to be able to have big high space, be able to have plenty of room for mechanical. If you've got a kitchen, where are the ducts going, all that kind of stuff. So we couldn't fit everything in, and so one of the ways we dealt with it was that there's on the second floor there's a little bit of space, office space over on the back corner, but then pretty much everything facing Hillsborough Street, wrapping all the way around this side of the building to the main lobby, is basically double height space. Actually, double height space because there's no second floor there.
That's because
We just
Hillsborough Street is like
couldn't get it in.
4 feet higher than Morgan, and that was enough to make the difference in the height restrictions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when, again, we put the building together, everything we had, and you actually maybe flip through some of the 3D view stuff. We had models from each of the major disciplines. We didn't do any kind of 360 real-time sharing or anything like that, but we were. Yeah, this may take it a second, but we were we were sharing on a periodic basis, and then we're using email and instant messenger and stuff like that to share information back and forth. Like, oh hey, post a new model, that kind of thing. And then we're just basically using ShareFile to push things back and forth. Even though the project was pretty fast paced, I think some of the folks on the team preferred to have it be a little bit more incremental like that, because I think one of the problems is we have a bad habit. For example, we'll have some problems. Say we go to a meeting with a client, and they're like, oh, hey, we want to do this thing. Well, we may go in there and start tearing the model apart and moving things around and trying something out, and it may not ever go anywhere. And we've had issues where if you're let's say you're the plumbing guy and you're trying to pipe the bathroom, and all of a sudden the bathroom's not there anymore, you don't know what happened. So from our side, it's a little bit at odds with sort of how we use the models. Not say it's
They would
good or
prefer
bad.
that the design settle down before we
Yes.
tell them about
and
changes.
then we're like, oh, hey, here's the new model. Here's whatever. So
Yeah, if it was constantly live, we would drive them
Yeah, we don't
insane.
usually invite them guys to the table until
Yeah.
we've got
yeah.
things ironed out. You know, it's a little testy when you start.
Yeah. Yeah, there's sometimes we got some moving parts. From our side, we love having everything in there. I think there's always a sort of visibility graphics question in terms of like what shows up and what you're seeing. But like, for example, we may go in and by default, you've got your other disciplines linked in. We're going to hide all your annotation. We're going to hide structural builds walls, which actually this is a structural model here. You can see anywhere there's brick veneer on the building, they built walls because they need them for their sections. So we pretty much universally hide their walls, so we don't want to see them. But if you go and look at our wall section probably has a pipe from the plumbing engineer. It probably has the structural beams from the structural model, structural floor slab, the decking, the edge of slab, the Nelson studs. So there's a lot of stuff that we then use basically to populate our work, and so that even though we're doing it sort of incrementally, we're coordinating in real time with the rest of the team, making sure that, oh hey, your slab edge isn't where it's supposed to be or whatever. We can kind of keep everybody moving in the same direction.
What's your tool of choice for those fast, design, look and fit on this site? Is it SketchUp?
Yep.
It depends on who you ask, though.
Well, if you use SketchUp or trace paper.
Right. Yeah, and we've done. We got the new thing, Morpholio, the thing on the iPads.
Yeah.
Which is
That's really cool, but we haven't actually used it
you
in the
have
wild yet.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Not in a
So
project that's real yet.
anyway. It's one of these things. It depends on who you ask in the firm. Although there are folks who are much more comfortable with Revit, who like massing and doing those kinds of things in Revit. Ben, I think, both came from the SketchUp world, where back when we started doing Revit, the overriding mentality was you didn't want to do that in a Revit model because you're just going to put all kinds of stuff in there, and then the model's going to bloat up, and 6 months from now you're going to be hating the fact that you were doing massing and everything in SketchUp or in Revit. But then there are other folks who are
SketchUp integrates with Google Earth, and you can.
Yeah, it's true too.
Because when they come to us with those properties, they don't have a survey or anything. It's just take it off Google. That's all you got.
That's not last call, I promise.
You turn the lights on and off from your phone? What's going on over there? Watch this.
That's fancy.
You guys do a lot of developer projects?
Yeah, I won't say all, but probably the vast majority of our work is private development work. So we have, depending on which discipline you look at, for example, landscape architecture, planning, those guys are doing a lot more municipal work than maybe the office as a whole. But yeah.
So the initial quick exercises that we're talking about, have you guys tried the test bit IO or something like that?
Yeah.
How does that work?
I haven't used it personally. I know we have it. I know we've been using it. That's the one that's sort of automated.
Generative design?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been messing with it, and there's some folks in the office that use it, but I haven't been exposed to it.
Yeah, I've seen it, but I haven't used it.
Yeah. I sat in on the presentation, I think, when we first looked at it. It's pretty interesting just in terms of being able to throw an idea out there and just kind of see what fits, see how things come together or whatever, and then be able to cycle through some options pretty quickly. But the other thing, the hot new thing now is on the iPad Pros, there's a program called Morpholio, and it's really slick because you can do some kind of 3D stuff with it, but it's really much more like, trace paper. So you can go back in Google Earth and zoom in on a site and get the piece of property, and then it basically has like trace paper layers. So you can drop those in. It's got a little scale that you can drag over and scale stuff, and then draw parallel lines and all that kind of stuff. And that's handy because you can do it on iPads. So you can kind of do it anywhere.
And then Format, more easier than Format?
I haven't used Format,
It's on
but okay,
It's plugged into Revit.
okay.
So whatever you generate there would go into Revit instead.
I'm gonna have to look at that. Is it run on iPad?
I think it does.
It does.
Does it run on Surface? Ah.
Yeah. It's a cloud. Revit runs, no, it runs in Surface because Revit
Yeah.
runs in Surface.
Yeah. See, I don't have the iPad, so I can't use Morpholio. But if I get it to run on there,
It's kind of like Autodesk take on sketch.
okay.
Just that because it's Autodesk based, that it will then play well with Revit.
That's pretty cool. Let's look at that and see.
Should be here.
Yeah. Eric's nodding his head. We must have it. I don't have it. Let's see if we can get it installed on my computer.
What was something cool that you guys learned about Revit on this project?
This is a few years ago, right?
I've been doing Revit for a long time.
No. This is probably, we'd done them. I had done full BIM projects before this, but this is probably one of the first ones in the office where generally we would have architectural and structural, but this is one of the first where we had plumbing, mechanical, electrical in there as well. And some of those guys, like for example, electrical guys, they'll model kind of as much as they need to, but just for us flip to that electrical model real quick, or even the like plumbing one or something. We had a huge amount of stuff down in the dirt under the building. So let's see if it updates here a little bit, but
It's gonna be a little laggy.
this is just electrical stuff, and it's going to be a little hard to read like this, but the transformers were over here on the side, and there's two big duct banks that come out of the transformers and basically run from where the transformers are over there, run all the way through the building to the main electrical room that's kind of under the kitchen, straight down into the kitchen down there. There's a generator down there on the back side. There's the sand filter. There's a couple of huge storm lines where all the roof drains and everything get collected together. There were 2 or 3 big storm lines that came through the middle of the building. So, we spent a ton of time basically looking at the first 20 feet, above and below grade. And where's that stuff coming through, and where are things going? Do people have room? How does that work, that foundation? Do we need to drop the pile cap, raise the pile cap, run something through a grade beam, whatever. So that was hugely beneficial.
When did you decide not to build a subway system? Like, just pull the tunnel system over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, there's a lot of that stuff that's dictated kind of by the building, and it's like if you can figure out how to make this work, you can get the building services, pushed further back off the street and get, a better retail space, get more space for a restaurant, or get more leasable space somewhere else. So we're always kind of looking at that and feeling like, okay, how can you? Is there anything we can do to kind of push this back and make this bigger? Because, at the end of the day, a lot of these developer projects like this, whether they get built or not, it's kind of just a simple math equation. they'll look at they've got land costs, they've got design costs, they've got whatever, they add all that stuff up, construction costs, and then they need a certain yield. And so the property, they're going to get this many dollars per parking space and this many dollars per square foot. And, does the market support it? And if you can figure out how to get a little bit more space in a retail suite, get an extra 1,000 square feet of retail, now all of a sudden we have actual dollars that you can do something else with. So trying to figure out how to do those things, and then all the time just kind of keeping an eye on the overall project in terms of what the square footages are, what the leasable space is. It actually helps us. It helps the client. The client's very happy when we send them an updated spreadsheet. It's like, oh, the building's actually 500 square feet bigger. Like, oh, that's great news. But it actually helps us because then that 500 square feet actually helps, fund, additional things that we want to do on the building and make the building nicer, make it a better place, and better contribution to the city. So.
You guys do formal calculations through Revit or?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's
There's the area plans.
whole series of area plans here somewhere. And they're generally set up to do it kind of automatically. If you do like the rentable square footage, it sort of defaults to it, and then you can basically go in and draw in all the area lines, and then we'll generally go and give certain things names or identify them in certain ways so that you can break out pieces and parts a little bit easier. Because you may want to know, how big is that amenity space next to upstairs, or some folks care about what the corridor square footage is on the floor, and others don't. So being able to break those spaces out and be able to say, okay, well, if you have a multi-tenant floor, so this is laid out basically as a multi-tenant floor, and it's saying all this green area here is where the corridor would be, and you can do the math and say, okay, we've got 1,500 square feet worth of multi-tenant corridor on a typical floor. But yeah, then we can just schedule this, and it pumps you out a schedule, and you go through and maybe add a couple things up, but then you can take that and plug it into Excel or whatever else to give them the final product. So we're using a little bit of Office and a little bit of BIM, but being able to do this in here, and then this becomes a live document, because then a lot of times, yeah, and things move, walls move, you go in and update stuff, or even particularly once the building is then under construction, leasing is ongoing. And so you get a call and they'll say, oh, well, hey, somebody's going to take half of 5, here's a plan. And you actually go in there and block that out and say, okay, well, here's their actual square footage, here's the core factor on that, and then there's, here's how much space is left on that floor, and be able to keep things live, in real time like that. It's pretty handy.
How long after the project do you still get called to do that work for the owner?
It depends. It depends. Sometimes we'll carry on for years.
Yeah.
They may, particularly folks we have sort of ongoing relationships with, they'll come back to us and saying, oh, hey, and then a lot of times we're doing that TI work too. We're doing the upfits, and so we're managing that whole thing. But generally speaking, I mean, in general, we're carrying it through, certainly through construction, just to manage that. And just after that, it really depends on whether their property management company takes it over or where it goes after that.
Does the property manager ever request your model?
I've never had a property management company ask for it. I was going to say they wouldn't, but I haven't.
JLL does. JLL usually does.
JLL might. We're doing one actually with them right now, and they might. The GCs often will.
What was the contracting method on this one? How did that affect collaboration?
Private bid stuff, as a rule, but generally as a rule, is going to be negotiated bid. So you're getting a GC on board, probably during design development, maybe during construction documents. They're assisting with feasibility, construction costs, construction scheduling, all that kind of stuff. And then they're going out and doing all the budget and doing getting bids in the market and pricing, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, Whiting Turner was the GC on this one, and yeah, they were involved. I think near the end of DD's, if I remember correctly. I don't remember exactly, but I think it was near the end of DD's when they came on formally. And they had the model, but I don't remember them doing a whole lot of Navisworks clash detection stuff. They were doing some.
Yeah, usually with the shell space, they're not
It's not as, yeah. A lot of, this one really, a lot of the clash detection, the coordination stuff had to do with the skin. It was, and not just because it's shell. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of pieces and parts, and there's a lot of, with the step backs and the way the columns come up through the building, the structure has to step and shift and everything. There are a lot of little places where, you've got a little fin of brick sticking out. Well, where's that lintel going, and where's this stuff coming from, and how's that stuff all get detailed? Where's the waterproofing line, all that kind of. So,
LED lighting on the outside of the building.
yeah, where all those conduits go? Yeah, because you can't see it from here, but yeah, that whole corner right there lights up. It's got strip lights on the mullion caps.
I remember when I saw that going up, I'm like, that's really cool.
Did you guys do the design for WeWork?
No, we didn't do their upfit. We were involved in the same kind of way. We're, early on they were coming and asking questions. WeWork had like a lot of tenants. They have some very specific requirements. They want to know about, we need this many restrooms per square foot or per person, or we need this many watts of power, or we need this many tons of cooling per square foot. And so we were involved very early on with them as they were doing their lease negotiations to say, okay, well, they want that. Can we provide it? What additional costs is associated with it? That kind of stuff. And then they have their own folks that actually do their upfit once they're all squared away.
What is your process for doing the tenant improvement work? Is it like a separate file? Is it just in the same file, different phases?
Generally a separate file. Sometimes, if nothing else, doing a separate file, it kind of to y'all's point earlier, it keeps work separated. It keeps things divvied up, but it also allows you to repeat sheet numbers, to copy details, but reuse them. Does lots of things like that. So generally speaking, it's going to be in a separate file. We may have phases in here. A lot of times we'll have a phase for future work, and then it may even be steps. So it's like, oh well, this is going to happen, then something else is going to happen. So tenant one, and then they punch a hole in the floor, and then future after that, and that way we can link those models in differently. Something of mine's dinging. Sorry about that. But we can link those models in and adjust the phases to control visibility.
When you're working with other consultants, like I guess particularly structural, what's kind of your workflow with the data elements, like levels and grids and things like that? Do both you and say the structural engineer create your own data points, grids and levels, and make sure that they're the same, or does
generally speaking, I've never.
Yeah, we'll usually create grids and levels in schematic design, and then pass it on to them, and they'll duplicate.
They'll
I think they copy monitor level and grid.
Yeah, they may copy monitor ours. We generally don't copy monitor theirs. We found that during design it just becomes sort of a headache. It's like, again, because sometimes stuff's moving around, you don't necessarily care that it's the copy monitor. So it just becomes, rather than depending on the tool to do it for us, it's just like, okay, well, we need to go in at some point and fix those column grids or whatever. So we're doing it manually, but everybody has their own in their model.
Okay.
Well, I want to tell you I love the building. It's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys. Okay, so we're gonna we've got a few more minutes so we can go through this. Anybody else have any more questions for these guys about Revit or anything they're doing? We got people over there breaking our office already. Yeah, you must have been the guy turning the lights on and off. Okay, well, anyway, we really appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I'm sure there's some food and everything left out there tonight. Where are we going to be? 2 months? Are we going to be back at Ratio?
Well, I don't know.
We'll talk about
We still have some scheduling things we got to work out.
Because this is a pretty big group, and the reason why we had to move from ratios, because we're getting real tight in there. So
Well,
I
we
think
can-
this is gonna, like, if we have the same similar size group, then it's gonna be pretty hard at ratio.
Yeah, and we can usually put.
We'd love to have
double
everyone, obviously, but, yeah.
Yeah, we can put double the number in here that we have tonight, so we just rearrange it, theater style. But yeah, if anybody else has anything else they want to, bring up, if you have a topic that you want to cover, let us know. We're more than happy to look at some new topics. We don't have our agenda set for the next month or 2 months from now.
Not yet.
Not yet.
And if you
Yeah,
recall, the last time we talked about maybe doing some show and tell.
Yeah, we'd love to see some more show
So,
and
which
tell.
I did before with the user group up in Baltimore. I think it's fun because it gives more people a chance to get up here and talk, but you only have to talk for a few minutes. So if you have any families or like little bits of a project, kind of like on a smaller scale of what they were doing here, just contact us and we'll get that scheduled.
Yeah, absolutely. Just let us know, and we're always looking for more people to come up here because you get tired of listening to me. I know that for sure.
Does it have to be?
Yeah, Jason's already over. I don't want to hear you anymore.
What was the question?
Does it have to be your own work for the show and tell?
No.
No,
Okay.
as long as you have right use permission to do it, because this stuff is taped and recorded. Just make sure you have permission to do it, because otherwise Donnie's gonna call you up, and he's gonna get Mike to come over here with his group from New York, and you don't want to go down that path,
There's like
right?
this gigantic retaining wall claim I'm working on, and it's really cool, but it's like a claim and.
Yeah, we wanna kind of, we'll do that little masking thing where you can't see what it is.
This guy's my voice.
All right, great. Thank you very much for everybody being here tonight. We're glad you came to see us. Stay tuned for the information about the next user group, and we're out. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll talk to you next time.